Hey folks, how's it going? This is Iron Seagull here, back with another Sims info and thoughts video. So I hope you're having a great weekend so far. And today we are going to do one more round of SimGuru Q&A. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So first we're going to start off with trains. Yep. So Sims Forever 32 asks, is it possible for trains, such as the ones in San Myshuno, to be made so the Sims can disappear into them and go to work? And Grant says, we actually discussed this for City Living, which is when San Myshuno was introduced. The key thing was, does it make sense to spend all this time implementing a fake bus or fake tram instead of something that actually adds gameplay? I was definitely on the same page as Sims Forever 32 here when City Living was first announced. When they started showing those trains, I was like, oh, that'd be so cool if Sims could actually use the trains. But of course that didn't end up happening, though I still find it kind of fun to watch the trains go by. I don't know. I just really like trains. I grew up on Thomas the Tank Engine long before it got ruined by memes. But anyways, yeah, it would be nice, I think, to have more of those sorts of transportation options, even if we don't really see them moving. But I can definitely understand Grant's explanation, because I feel like City Living already did cut some corners with us not being able to make our own apartments in other worlds, and the elevators basically being glorified teleporters with no animations. So I could not even imagine how much worse it would be if they did spend time making a train that your Sims just disappear into and sacrificing more gameplay, like, I don't know, those garage doors that you just saw that you can paint murals on, I don't know, just stuff like that. So yeah, while I do love trains, yeah, I can let that go in sacrifice for maybe just better overall gameplay features that I would use more often and in all worlds. I guess if they had done a more New York inspired world, then it would have made more sense to put some resources into having a subway station where the subway actually does animate and it comes in, and then once it's there, you can have your Sim just go on the subway and travel to whatever place you want to go to. Because, I don't know, I just feel like with subways, that's just part of the New York culture, if that makes any sense. I'm sure anybody who actually lives in New York City can tell that much better than me, but yeah, I guess in that case it would have made more sense. Though I'm still glad that San Myshuno did kind of go in a, I guess, less expected direction, because I guess Bridgeport was a little bit closer to that in The Sims 3 Late Night than San Myshuno was, so it's good to not have every single thing in The Sims 3 repeat itself in The Sims 4. And it is kind of interesting that they also kind of went back on that decision a little bit, because in Brindleton Bay with cats and dogs, there's some boats that are scattered around the world that you can click on, and then you can use those to go to Deadgrass Isle, which is just like that island with the pet cemetery there. It's still like, yeah, you just click on the boat, your Sim walks up to it, and then they disappear into the loading screen, but it's still kind of interesting. It's just a small little detail to help tell the story of how your Sims get from point A to point B, even without the open world that The Sims 3 had. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the bugs that are currently in the game, and this actually started from a tweet by Molly, the English simmer. And she says, the travel glitch really needs to be fixed. Someone just invited my Sim to hang out at Orchid A Go-Go, and they ended up in the Selva Dorada bar. Luckily, I knew how to get out of it, but another simmer might not have known. SimGuru Nick. And I replied saying, really hoping this gets fixed in April. This issue's been left alone for too long. And SimGuru Nick says, we've definitely seen this issue too, and it's at the very top of my list, right alongside stuff like lecturing pets for misbehavior, the hair and makeup interaction, taking family leave, Grandmaster vampires not gaining points, etc. I can't give dates, but thanks for the report. So it is comforting to know that this travel bug is at the top of SimGuru Nick's list, because that bug really annoys me quite a bit, because even though, yes, I do decline those random text most of the time. Sometimes I'm like, okay, let's take this day in a different direction than I initially thought, and say I get invited to the bar in Brindleton Bay, then all of a sudden the Sims just end up in the middle of Windenburg near someone's house, and I'm thinking, what happened? Did I read the text wrong? But no, it's happened to me multiple times now, and it is most definitely a bug. Hopefully this does get fixed in April, because if I remember correctly, this issue has been going on since the update that released just before Get Famous. It's too bad this is still going on months later, but it is pretty annoying. And something that just popped into my mind, I wonder if they would actually add more of these random text messages, because I'm pretty sure the majority of us are really annoyed by those. I'm glad Strangerville did not add any more, because I do remember I asked one of the Sim Gurus, are there going to be more of those, where Sims will pester us into trying to solve the mystery of Strangerville, but thankfully no, that did not happen. So I think I do speak for at least most of us that we wouldn't want any more of those random texts, but I bring this up because I was thinking if there was a new pack that came out that would add more of those random texts, then that would give them a lot more of a push to fix that bug, but we'll see, I guess. Next, let's talk a bit about careers. So Ella Swan asks, how long does it take to make a rabbit hole career compared to the other ones? I'd like to see a few more normal ones in the future, like teacher, electrician, part-time grocery store, etc. But I like the ones that are already in the game too. And Grant replies with, it varies because the career work also includes the new costumes/uniforms, new reward objects, new interactions. There's never a one-size-fits-all cost. That explanation does make sense to me because some careers do have different interactions compared to other ones. Like with the military career, you can eventually unlock that military walk style. That's pretty interesting. So yeah, it's not really as simple as you'd think. And I guess for more mundane jobs, like operating the cash register at a grocery store, I'd be fine with it just being a pure rabbit hole career, because I think that would be very boring to watch, especially after more than once or twice. But I think, other than that, 90% of the time, I want every new career to be at least on the level of a work-from-home career, because, like, going back to the military one, where you do have the option of just sending them off to a rabbit hole, but also having the choice of just doing some tasks around the house or just around town, like going for a jog or practicing on the training dummy. Yeah, I really enjoy those. It's not quite on the level of excitement as going to an active career like the actor, but it's still a nice compromise between the two, because it's understandable. Not every single career makes sense or is doable within the team's budget to have every single career be an active one. Next, Aru Hohenheim, I'm sorry, I probably really butchered that username, asks, I'm not sure if this is something you can answer, but I just looked up the release dates for previous packs and noticed the last few weren't released as far apart as before. Will releases be more frequent this year? And Grant says you should never make assumptions about what we will do this year or next based on what we did last year or the one before. We are always changing. And it's true, it's not always the same. I do remember quite a while back, I think it was 2015 or 2016, when people came up with this theory that there was a very set pattern where it was like 2 stuff packs getting released next to each other, and then an expansion pack, and then a game pack, and then the 2 stuff packs together again, or something along those lines. But then a few months later, that pattern got broken by, I think, City Living? So it's definitely dangerous to assume that there is going to be a pattern. Like, sometimes, yeah, it makes sense to make theories based off of just, like, certain things that would make financial sense. Like last year, I predicted that once Seasons was announced to be coming out in June of last year, that, they'll probably do a second expansion pack this year because it would make sense to release an expansion pack just before the holidays because people will be buying gifts for each other and that sort of thing. And yeah, that ended up being right. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happens again this year because it looks like there is some evidence that is pointing to a new expansion pack coming out in June of 2019. But yeah, other than that, it is pretty dangerous to assume that it'll always be the same every year. And, well, I hope you like cake because we're going to be talking about that next. As Tubby Honey asks one question, why aren't cakes in the baking option? I really need to know. And Grant says, I don't know as I didn't work on that specifically, but if I had to assume, it's because we added baking for Get to Work, and would have had to do really weird difficult stuff for people with only the base game, and people with base plus Get to Work. Working with expansions is weird. And I guess with Grant's explanation that does make a bit more sense to me because if they did make cakes just strictly under the baking option, then it would be weird. They would have to do like some extra work so that players without Get to Work could still bake cakes. But it is still weird nonetheless because you don't cook a cake, you bake it. So it does still feel strange that you cook a cake instead of baking it in The Sims 4, at least according to the pie menu. So it would be nice if that could be changed. It's not like my most wanted thing by any stretch of the imagination. And I believe there are mods that do change this, so if it really does bother you that much, then you can just download that simple mod. It won't really change anything in your game besides that, and yeah, that'll be cool. You don't have to worry about that. Next, we're going to talk a bit about the emotion system. So, CRV Wolf asks, I really like the emotion system, but I think Sims are way too happy most of the time because of silly things. That's partly why I'd really like traits like insecure, gloomy, awkward, things that play a little with other emotions when they're interacting with things. And Simguru Grant replies with, something we've talked about is tweaking that so that happy isn't the neutral. There are some issues with how the system has scaled across 25 pieces of DLC. Yes, I definitely would like happiness to be a bit harder to achieve, and this does remind me of the Meaningful Stories mod by Roberki, because that does make it so that Sims are just fine more often, and that it does get harder to get into the happy emotion. But I'm pretty sure Roberki did say that it took years to make that mod, so even for a modder to do, it is pretty complicated. And lastly, we are going to talk about worlds, as Tomowski asks, is there a separate team working on Game Pack worlds? I always wonder why they seem to be looking better than most expansion pack worlds. And Grant replies with, same team makes all TS4 content. I think with the game packs, as they're $20 and more niche themes, we can pursue more wild things like Strangerville or Selva Dorada. And yeah, I guess that makes more sense. With the game packs, they're more willing to take risks and do crazier things because the game packs are meant to be more niche, while the expansion packs are the crowd pleasers. And I guess in terms of the more recent packs, yeah, I would say that the game pack worlds are a bit better than what we got with the expansion packs. Well, with Seasons, we didn't really get a new world because Seasons basically revamped the graphics of all the existing ones. And then with Get Famous, well, yeah, Del Sol Valley was a disappointment to many because of its size. And there's just a lot of set dressing too. But with Selva Dorada and Jungle Adventure, I really like that world a lot. I think it's very beautiful, and I really like how they really did go the extra mile with the jungle and really brought it closer to an open world feel than with any of the previously released worlds in The Sims 4. So that was really cool. And with Strangerville, I like that world quite a bit too, especially with Shady Acres, because it really does remind me of that one trip that I took to New Mexico when I was little. And overall, it is a really nice desert world with its own storyline to follow. And for that, I just feel like it's a big improvement over Oasis Springs, which is also a desert world. And that wraps up another Sims Info and Thoughts video, so feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. on any of the topics discussed. And be sure to leave a like or a comment or subscribe because it lets me know that you like my content and it helps you keep up to date with my latest stuff from The Sims, Sonic the Hedgehog, and more. So I will talk to you all later and have a great day. Thanks for watching!